Governments believe they have power that they don't actually possess. The people will stand up at one point and say, no mas, okay? You're not doing that to us.
This is Kaiser Johnson, and here's the weekly special for November 13th through 20th, 2023, while supplies last. XF $20 Gold Liberties at $1.65 over melt, and 2023 Silver Philharmonics at $3.40 over spot. Call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is our good friend Bob Moriarty from 321gold.com, 321energy.com, Marine Naval Aviator, and financial author. Bob, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, and certainly we have some things to talk about.
Definitely. We have a lot of things to talk about today. I wanted to start off with the counterintuitive price action we're seeing in many markets. Over the last few weeks, we've seen a rally in the stock market. We've seen the oil price drop, and we've also seen kind of metals go down and then back up. And it seems like with all the dramatic things happening in the world, this is very counterintuitive and people are a bit confused. Your take on what is happening in the markets?
I think there's something more important that we should discuss first. I never got a review of Chateau Facts.
You know, I should have brought the bottle with me, but people saw it on a previous interview. You showed the bottle of Chateau Facts, and it was actually the 2022 version that you made yourself, actually from your vineyard, I believe. And it was actually some of the best wine I've had. I'm not a wine aficionado, so I can't tell you all the different notes, but it was a pleasure to drink.
Well, Facts was very proud of it. So let's go on to more interesting things. You raised a good issue. Now, let me say one thing first, and I will apologize to your listeners. In August, I said we were going to have a market crash in 6 to 8 weeks. And I thought the actions of the Fed on September 20th would be very important when they said the interest rate increases would be longer and higher than people anticipated. And I'll be blunt, that's probably the worst prediction I've ever made. And I was absolutely incorrect. Now, do I feel guilty? No, because nobody makes 100% predictions. And if a person is honest, they'll stand up and say, I'm wrong. And since it's never happened to me before, I have no particular problem admitting I was absolutely dead wrong. But you raised something. I mean, I've been sitting here wondering, this is the most absurd market in every way. Oil shot up, and it seemed to make sense because of the chaos in the Middle East. And gold didn't do anything. And then gold went up. And then the stock market went down, and it literally touched a very important point where I thought it would start a market crash, and exactly the opposite happened. Now, do you know where the NASDAQ and the S&P and the Dow are compared to where they were in late July? We're at exactly the same point, okay? You know, I was really proud of myself because I came out with two predictions, one saying the markets had topped and the other saying that we were going to have a massive crash. And I thought, well, you know, I was right 1 out of 2. If the market goes up for another day or two, I'm going to look stupid twice. But we're in an area where I don't think there's any logic. I don't think there's any connection on anything. Okay, that's true of gold. It's true of the gold stocks. It's true that stock market. It's true of oil. And frankly, I can't guess where it's going to go from here. But some things, the last time we talked about that $600 billion in increase in debt in 1 month. And I'll just say, yes, I was wrong. However, you just cannot tolerate a $7.2 trillion increase in debt in 1 year without blowing the financial system sky high. And I remain convinced the financial system is going to blow sky high. I'm just not going to put a date and time on it anymore.
Now, we have quite a few viewers' questions. I was looking before the interview. It looks like there were about 40 questions submitted here for you. So a lot of them were saying how Bob is our favorite guest. So just thank you once again for joining us today and giving us your time. I did want to ask you this one question about, it relates to oil, but also gold prices. The question is, could you please ask Bob if there is any correlation between oil and gold prices? And I guess kind of going with that, if we do see a spike in oil, what happens to gold?
That's a multi-part question. First of all, I don't see any direct correlation. However, if there was an Arab oil embargo, or if Israel bombed Iran, which is what they really want to do, you would obviously see a spike in oil, and you would see a spike in gold at the same time. One of the things that I want you to do is I want you to take a screen print of the XAU over gold, and I'll tell you what you're going to see. It declined to new lows exactly the same way it did 13 months ago. And 13 months ago, I said that gold shares are going to go up into March, and that's exactly what happened. Now, I didn't know what was going to happen after March, and in fact, from March until now has been a total disaster. And I'm pretty sure the last time we did an interview, I said gold stocks look good between now and March. John Rubino has done an excellent piece talking about why gold stocks have not gone up. And he said what it's going to take a new high in gold for the market to wake up. And I think we're going to see that shortly. And again, I'll crawl out on a limb and you can cut it off behind me. We could see that in the next week or two. So we're at a very precarious point in history, and I'm not sure what's going to go on from here, but it's exceptionally dangerous. And for those who have listened to me, and when I said you've got to prepare, I think they're going to see the wisdom in preparing.
Now, we have quite a few viewers' questions on mining stocks. And as we're on that topic, one of the viewers asks, why do you think mining stocks have been so depressed lately?
Well, strange enough, I just answered that. Go to my site and read the piece by John Rubino. I'm not sure what he called it. He said something like, gold stocks really suck, and here's why. We had a disastrous market in gold stocks since March, which is not rational at all. And that's what you were talking about before, because gold has held up very well. Gold is 3% below the highest it's ever been. And the stocks are selling for pennies. And the one thing that I'll say is, one, I think it's safe to invest between now and March. Two, you need to take into account tax loss silly season. But I think that it's safe. It's relatively safe between now and mid-December. And after mid-December, especially if we have a new high in gold, I think you could say a roaring success in the market. Similar to 2015, 2016. I'm a contrarian, and everything happens in an equal cycle. So you have a really crappy cycle, which everybody hates, and they hate me, and they hate you, and anybody talking about gold. And then you have a booming cycle, and all of a sudden you're handsome, and I'm interesting to listen to. But it's a cycle. It goes up and it goes down, and it's no big deal. And you would never notice gold stocks are going up unless they had gone down first. But I think we're going to go into a good period here shortly.
Now, I know we've covered a bit of this before, but it's a recurring theme that viewers are very interested in. We talk about, the collapse of the financial system, and a lot of people are concerned about, well, if I have money in mining stocks, isn't that kind of part of the financial system? We have different questions on how safe are stocks if the financial system crashes, and also what if brokerages collapse? If you could share with the viewers once again your view on that.
Okay, those are all good concerns, and it's wise for people to pay attention to them. And I don't think there's any simple answer. In a financial collapse, everyone gets hurt, and you want to have enough of the numbers covered and the red and the black covered that you don't get wiped out. This would not be a good time to be in debt. It would not be a good time to go into debt. I can't predict exactly what's going to happen. There's some really scary stuff. Someone said something to me that suggested in the event of a total collapse that brokerage houses could be taken over by the government. I don't know what's going to happen. Anyone who says this and this and this and this is going to happen is full of shit, period. Okay. We can't know. All I can say is cover your bases as best you can. But in my opinion, and I've bet a lot of money on this, ownership of mining stocks is fractional ownership of a real asset. And I just don't see the brokerage house taking over the mining stocks or the government taking over the mining stocks. I don't think it would be legal under any circumstance. And if it happened, get your gun, let's go start a revolution.
Another question on stocks. This viewer says that they have stocks and some cash. Would you advise, and obviously we don't give financial advice, so maybe just your perspective on this, would you advise selling stocks and putting it into gold and silver?
Well, I view gold and silver, physical gold and silver, as an insurance policy. And I know people disagree with me. No, it's money. I don't want to make that kind of argument. I sleep better at night knowing that on my left hand, I can put some gold and silver, and on my right hand, I can put Fax's head for a neck scratch.
I think that's a good point. It's important to have something very close. Besides mining stocks, and it's a bit ambiguous what the viewer was asking about stocks, do you see any other investments right now that people should be considering besides the mining stocks and the physical metal?
Probably energy in any form. And I wish... I read so many articles every day that I would love to refer to that I wish I had some way of organizing. But one of the big names in investing, one of these guys who controls $1 trillion in a fund, said, we're going to have 40 years of disastrous investing. And I know what it was like from 1966 until 1984. And most people alive today were too young to remember that. But we had year after year after year after year of declining assets. And I think you're going to see that again at resource stocks of any kind, because they represent something real, okay? They're tangible assets. They're not paper assets. Paper assets are going to go to paper heaven.
This viewer is wanting to know, if we do go to a central bank digital currency, what good will gold and silver be in that case? Will it lose value in a no cash society?
If you pick up any history book, you will never find story after story after story of benevolent dictators and benevolent leaders. You see the oligarchs screw this up. You see them screw something else up. You see wars fought for no purpose whatsoever. History books are filled with the broken dreams of the oligarchs who think they run the world. Central bank digital currencies don't make a lick of sense because all they do is transfer total power to the government. And that's what they make barricades and revolutions for. It's happened 100 times before in history, and it's going to happen again. So in the unlikely event that they would succeed with central bank digital currencies, you've gone into never, never land, where the idiots in Washington and the idiots in Brussels have just gone off on one more tangent. Now, we know that electric vehicles don't make financial sense. We know that wind turbines don't make financial sense. We know that climate change was made up and they've been lying ever since. We know that CO2 at 0.4%, 0.04% is actually a very beneficial gas. 100% of what we're being told now is a lie. So if you want to find out what the truth is, first of all, you've got to stand up and you've got to do some research on your own. And second of all, you have to listen to the mainstream media and then realize that exactly the opposite is true.
One thing that kind of came to mind there is that you mentioned, the people taking the power back. And I think that's a really important theme there. And it's quite interesting because it also involves a change of heart for us, the people, to realize that in a lot of ways we've chosen the governments that exist right now, the way that we're living our lives, for example, in the US, of really consumerism and always wanting an expanding economy. A lot of the time that's only possible if we have an expanding monetary system. And if we are going to go back to something real and not have central bank digital currency, we might have to kind of cut back and not go for the bigger corporations and the ease of life with, Amazon. You can click and get something to your door in one day or a couple hours here. We have to realize that we need to live more on a local level. Your perspective on that, maybe the changes that we have to make if we're actually going to choose liberty and freedom.
Okay, I'm going to raise two issues. One of those is you just made a really important point, and that is the supply chains have been destroyed by the COVID overreaction and the climate change nonsense. We need local production. We need mom and pop stores. As nice as it is to have an Amazon, we've got to support our neighbors. We've got to work together. And that's exactly what BRICS is trying to do. Russia and India and China and Brazil and South Africa are trying to build a better economic world. And the Western-based debt system is trying to destroy the financial system. And quite bluntly, they are going to destroy the financial system. But in doing so, they're going to destroy themselves. Now, let me talk to you about power, because I know power, because I had unlimited power as a forward air controller in Vietnam. I decided when I went out to the battlefield, my little tiny airplane, I decided who lived and who died. And after doing exactly the same thing for 7 months in a row, I looked around and said, this is a waste of time. We're not accomplishing anything here. We've been lied to. It took me that long of doing the same thing again and again and again and again, and there being no change to realize we had made a giant mistake. Now, let's talk about power in Canada. Okay. The Canadian truck drivers felt offended at the government saying they had the right to force COVID vaccines that were untested on them. And they protested. Who actually won the protest? The truckers absolutely won. They stood up. They drove down the highway. Every bridge over the highway had hundreds of people waving Canadian flags, cheering them on. They get to Ottawa, okay, and the Nazi in charge of the Canadian government says, okay, we're going to smash these people. What he did is he destroyed his credibility. And then they go in and they start seizing bank accounts for people who had contributed $50 to the truckers. You can lose a battle by fighting it in the first place. The best way to win any battle is to not fight. And the Canadian government decided they were going to take on the Canadian truck drivers. And quite bluntly, the Canadian truck drivers won that battle. And they demonstrated that the Canadian government was a paper tiger. And quite bluntly, I'm just totally amazed that Trudeau is still in power. The man's a blithering idiot.
You mentioned how really the BRICS nations are choosing in some respect, a better path by possibly going to a sound money system. Gerald wants to know, are precious metals, gold and silver, considered by you to be in short supply since the BRICS and central banks are accumulating them?
They're not in short supply. Okay, price determines demand in all cases. If you want someone to supply more corn, pay them more money. Gold and silver have never been in shortage. I mean, the funny thing is, and there's so many lies told about it, and I'm really shocked that the financial newsletter writers get so many things wrong. There have been 50 billion ounces of silver produced, and much of it is still above ground. I mean, we recycle aluminum tin cans, for crying out loud. You think they don't recycle silver? Of course they do. We have an 80-year supply of gold. Okay, we could shut every mine in the world down for 80 years, and we've got an 80-year supply in storage. Okay, so there's no shortage. It's all an issue of what's the price.
We have a few viewers' questions here, and I guess I'll just preface this if you want to answer this. Have we already been over that The Great Taking? Have you read that yet?
The Great Taking. That's exactly what I was talking about. The Great Taking. I don't know if it's an interesting theory or if it's something real, but the Great Taking maintains that governments now have the right to seize all assets. Someone sent it to me and I read it and it scared me because it did appear that governments have a lot more power that they've tried to hide from us. But are they going to screw it up? Yeah, they're going to screw it up. They screw everything else up. Why wouldn't they screw that up? Okay, believe me. Okay, when they come to your door and say, hey, Bob, can we have your gold? Yeah, sure. Of course. Here, let me show you this sword that I just bought last week.
So I guess for those who are reading the book, The Great Taking, and are concerned about, obviously, all the data that they have, that really shows that the government has a lot more authority over your finances and businesses than you think. And is it really, your money in the bank? Is it really yours? Is your money in your IRA really yours? Is your money, your stocks in your brokerage account really yours? Your perspective on all that and how people can position themselves to be more secure if the government or businesses come after their funds.
If you've got gold and silver in your hand, it's safe. And you can always defend it. Everything else is at risk. However, and again, this is a theme that I keep going back to, governments believe they have power that they don't actually possess. And they pass all these rules and regulations and laws. And the great taking is a very scary thing. And that goes back to the fourth turning, where the authors 20 years ago turned around and said, okay, we're going to have a move towards totalitarian government. That would be totalitarian government, but that's what they make revolutions for. If they think they're going to seize everybody's bank account and everybody's brokerage account and their houses and their cars, I got a big surprise for them. It ain't going to happen. The people will stand up at one point and say, no mas. Okay, you're not doing that to us. And that in essence was the lesson that I learned from Canadian truck drivers. That was an amazing thing to do. There was no central leadership. There was just thousands of people who thought about what was going on, and they stood up and they said, look, we're going to protest. And that was just taking a shot. Okay. So if governments just don't have this power, they believe they have the power and they don't have the power. And if they want to screw it up, they can go in the history books as one more screw up by the oligarchs who didn't think through what they were doing. The world is very close to a revolution, and it's something that I predicted in a book that I wrote in 2016.
We have probably the most important question submitted here. Border Collies are the smartest of dog breeds. Has Fax learned to read your mind yet?
It's embarrassing to me. I don't mind having a very smart dog. I just mind having a dog that's smarter than I am. Now, I haven't mentioned this. Fax learned a new trick. Fax likes me to take him out on walks 3 times a day. And he gets so excited, he just literally jumps up and down for joy and will bark and say, okay, Dad, we got to go for a walk. And sometimes I've got to actually do some work and I get tied up in something else. So I will leave him out in the yard. I've got the world's first self-walking dog. My mill is enclosed. I've got a wall, and I've got a barn, and I've got the house, and I've got a pond that slides the water to the mill, and I've got a wall to my next door neighbors. Fax jumps over the wall to the next door neighbors, swims down the river for about 100 meters, gets out of the river, goes and visits all his girlfriends, and he comes back 45 minutes or an hour later, and he sits outside the barn. So anytime I need Fax, I don't call for him. I just go open the barn door, and there he is. Hey, Dad, I had a really good walk. Was it good for you, too? So I've got the world's first self-walking dog. I think that was amazing. I thought the trick of this is how you get out of a dog collar. I thought that was pretty cool. But this self-walking dog, I'm gonna try to figure out how to patent that. But it does scare me. They're incredibly intelligent animals, and the Border Collies have a sense of humor as well. They're very humble about how smart they are.
And if you want to hear more about Fax or even see him, you'll have to look at the other interviews we've done. I can definitely vouch for his existence. I know one of the viewers is wanting to see Fax. We've done that before. So just check the other interviews and you'll be able to see him there. But Bob, we really appreciate your time as always. Where can our viewers find you online if they're interested in learning more?
321gold.com. And Lulu, they can get books from Lulu, and they can get books from Amazon. And I will say, and this is a bit of self-promotion, the range of books that I've written is quite broad, from very serious books about war, serious books about the economy, interesting books about how a gold company got started and got into production, and actually some short fiction that's quite funny. If you're any kind of a reader whatsoever, there would be something that I've written that you would find interesting. That is for people who are sober.
Fantastic. Bob, once again, thank you so much for your time today, and God bless.
Okay, it's always good to talk to you.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we can let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability, and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Kaiser, my brother Elijah, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.